Hey there, and welcome to the Women Aging Powerfully podcast. I'm your host, Leah Vachani, certified menopause specialist and nutrition coach. Each week, I chat with top experts on nutrition, fitness, hormones, sleep, fat loss, and other crucial menopausal topics your doctor might be skipping over. We simplify complex science into actionable steps for your daily life, empowering you to tackle menopausal symptoms, weight challenges, and boost your overall health. We are not about aging gracefully. We're about aging powerfully. So grab your headphones, turn up the volume, and dive into this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Women Aging Powerfully podcast. I'm your host, Leah Vachani, and today we're diving into a topic that affects millions of people yet remains widely misunderstood and actually often misdiagnosed: chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, and long COVID. I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Jenny Tufenkian, a licensed naturopathic physician with over 20 years of experience who specializes in helping health-conscious professionals overcoming debilitating fatigue. What makes Dr. Tufenkian's approach so powerful is that she's actually walked this path herself. After battling her own chronic fatigue, she developed a transformative system that addresses the 5 core root causes of these conditions. In our conversation today, we are going to explore the differences between chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, and long COVID, why conventional testing often misses the mark, the 5 root causes that Dr. Tufenkian has identified, and how the subconscious mind plays a crucial role in healing. Also, we're going to talk about her unique 3 bodies approach that integrates physical, mental, emotional, and energetic dimensions. So if you or someone you love has been struggling with unexplained fatigue, brain fog, I think we can probably all raise our hand on that one, or post-viral symptoms that doctors just can't seem to figure out, this episode could be transformative. Dr. Jenny brings both her clinical expertise and her personal journey to this conversation. She offers hope and practical solutions for those who've been told everything looks normal despite feeling anything but normal. So let's dive in with Dr. Jenny on reclaiming your energy and vitality. Hi, Dr. Jenny. I am so glad you're here today. And some of these topics we're about to dive into, I know our audience is just they're going to love getting the information from you. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, well, let's dive in right away. First of all, how did you get into the specificities of studying, long COVID and brain inflammation and dementia? What's your story there?
Yeah, so it really chose me. Long COVID is a condition that has really exploded, of course, since we had the pandemic. There are more than 400 million people out there diagnosed with long COVID, and we know there's so many undiagnosed. And this impacts women twice as often as it impacts men. And so I know there are a lot of women walking around undiagnosed who are struggling with fatigue and brain fog, and it may be long COVID, and their doctors don't even know what to look for. This situation actually chose me decades ago because I struggled with something that used to be called chronic fatigue syndrome and now is called myalgic encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain and the body. And I got very sick after my second year of medical school and had to take a year out. I was trying to have a second child, ended up having a miscarriage, and at 17 weeks, and I hemorrhaged, and it threw my body into emotional mayhem. And I ended up crashing out in bed for months. People thought I was going to die. I had IVs in my arm. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I had severe emotional things. I'm suicidally depressed. There was a lot going on. And it was truly a dark night of the soul that ultimately allowed me to learn about myself in a whole new way and ultimately made me a better physician. But it triggered the chronic fatigue syndrome in me. So after I got out of bed, I moved to the couch. And that's when somebody said, "Do you have chronic fatigue syndrome?" And I'm like, "Get that label away from me." It's called the yuppie flu back then. I didn't want to be identified with that. And then I realized it kind of stuck. And so I had to discover how it was I could get out of this fatigue cycle. My journey I got out, I was able to get out 150%, complete 100% resolution from this condition. Never thought I'd get it again. And then I got it again. I hit perimenopause, which is why I think it's so great we're here talking, because there's something that happens when our hormones start shifting, where we are more vulnerable to things coming back that we might have had earlier, or catching new things in our body, because those hormones, as you well know, are anti-inflammatory and immune supportive and protective. And when they start going up and down, it's really easy to not have that buffer and for our bodies to become more vulnerable. So I used to say I crashed the second time and there are all these other things that happen with perimenopause sprinkled on top. Now I understand the power of those hormones even more. And I'm aware that that was a huge part of why I fell into this pattern a second time 17 years later. The gift of that experience was I then had all of this medical experience and knowledge, and I was able to apply so much more to it. I was able to come up with a system and a way to help people with this condition. I once again put it in 100% remission. And then when the pandemic hit, I anticipated we were going to have something like this happen. And I began teaching and talking about it, and then it caught me. And so I've had this very personal experience with these conditions where I can feel what it's like to have long COVID, how it's different from when I had MEs before, and also how they're similar. And really the same things apply in terms of getting people back to feeling like they have more energy and more mental clarity. And so I'm, really excited and honored to share this with you, because I know there are too many of you out there listening to this who are struggling with fatigue and not getting the answers you deserve so that you can get your health back.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I think one of the biggest obstacles for women who are experiencing, chronic fatigue or lethargy is where to start.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think a lot of women, as you mentioned, they're going to their doctor and the doctor is saying the labs are all fine.
Yeah,
It's just whatever. It's age, it's hormones, you'll get through it, whatever, and they feel gaslit and they feel dismissed and they know deep down inside something's not right. So where do these women start?
yeah. So first of all, the place to start is always believing yourself. You know you better than any other doctor. Nobody else knows you better than you. So if you know that you're tired, if you have that feeling that something's going on with you that you need to figure out, that's true. That is absolutely true. And you need to keep knocking on doors until you get the answers that resonate with you. You know when they resonate and you're like, oh yeah, this person's onto something. This makes sense. So that's the first piece of advice I have. And I am shocked at how much I still hear the same thing of exactly what you said is, honey, you're getting older. You're 37, you've got a couple kids. That's why you're tired. And it's not the case.
Yeah.
So I think the first is believing yourself. And then it's really important to, if you're feeling tired, sometimes it's easy for women to assume that everything is something about what they're not doing well enough. And if they just ate a bit better, if they just got themselves to the gym, maybe they'd have more energy. Sometimes that's true. And so if you do know that you're burning the candle at both ends of the day, if you are overdoing, if you're not giving yourself enough time to sleep, if you're skipping meals, not intentionally, but you're just too busy to eat, it's like, yeah, I have so many.
I've been there.
People going, oh yeah.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. And, just drinking caffeine or grabbing sugar for quick energy, then yeah, those things may be contributing to your low energy. And if you change those things, you should feel a difference really quickly, like really quickly. If it takes weeks or months and you're still feeling tired, there's something else going on there. And it deserves to get a proper workup beyond the normal standard test that your doctor's going to run on you.
Yeah. So you work a lot with, for example, you mentioned long COVID. So, and then you also said that a lot of women don't even know that that's a factor in their
Right.
health. Is there a test for that? How do you diagnose that?
Yeah, there isn't a test for it. There isn't a test for long COVID, and there isn't a test for myalgic encephalitis chronic fatigue, and that's part of the problem. These conditions really don't fit into the medical model as it is today, which makes this a challenge for your doctor too. Like, I don't just blame the doctors, because honestly, it just is outside of the way the system is set up. In the 7 minutes you have with them in that visit, they don't have enough time to ask you all the questions to rule in and rule this out to see if this is what your cause is if this is why you're so tired. And that system is based on you get a test, the test diagnoses you with a condition, we give you a treatment, you feel better, and the test shows that objectively that you are improving. And that's how the system is set up. And these don't fit into there. So you have to go through to be diagnosed with long COVID or myalgic encephalitis. There's a list of criteria. And the super confusing thing to everyone is that there are multiple lists of criteria and not everybody follows the same criteria. There's a criteria from the CDC. There's a thing called FDUCA. There are all these different systems where we use this. And so it gets to be a little bit confusing for everybody. But just to give you kind of the basics of it, it means that you have been more tired than is really explained by anything else. You didn't just have a baby and you're not up all night nursing, right? It's like there's some reason you're tired and there's nothing that's explaining it. Now, the fatigue may come and go throughout the day. You may wake up with lots of energy and crash in the afternoon. But when you start noticing you're doing things like energy budgeting, where you're making deals with yourself in your mind or verbally out to somebody else, where you're saying, oh man, if I go after work and go get drinks and go dancing with my friends, there's no way I'm going to be able to get all the stuff done I need to do this weekend. Or if I go to that soccer game and throw the birthday party, there's no way I can do anything the next day. I just need to be on the couch the next day. When you start kind of energy budgeting and holding yourself back from doing things because you're afraid of how tired you're going to be, that's a really, really good sign that you're more tired than you should be. A lot of women I know are, they're really amazing professionals, and a lot of them are parents as well. And they end up working all week and then spending the weekend on the couch, and they think that's normal, and it's not. You should wake up every day with energy and be able to go all day long. Yeah.
And what if you have like no energy for, all week, and then you have a couple days of energy, and then you have another week of no energy, and then you have a couple days of energy? Does that mean that you don't have these conditions?
No, it doesn't, because they can wax and wane, and they have multiple root causes. Nobody gets long COVID. The reason you get long COVID or myalgic encephalitis, there's always this thing called the setup.
Mm.
And that's what was going on in your body when this hit. And it's usually it could be, what was your diet? How's your digestion? How's your, gut microbiome? What are your genetics? What environmental toxins are you around? All of these things play in. What's your stress level? What's that little voice saying to you in your head? How's your subconscious mind? Have you been paying attention to that? I mean, all of these pieces, all of them play into how your immune system functions or dysfunctions. And these are really important things to realize. And so, why one person gets long COVID is different than how somebody else gets long COVID. And they're all different.
Yeah, you mentioned root causes. What are those root causes?
So the root causes can be, I look at people's health foundations and I look at root causes. So the health foundations are the things you would think. They're the sleep, your rhythm in your day, your digestion, detoxification, your movement, your breath, your mindset and spirit, and your connection, your sense of connection with yourself, with your community, with your higher self, whatever that means to you. Those are all really important. Getting those dialed in is going to improve your health no matter what. And it's what high performers do to stay at their peak level. When people are really sick, if they can just focus on one of those health foundations, like if your gut's a wreck, focusing on that, or if your sleep is a mess, focusing on that can make a huge difference in just getting your body to get back into this regulated state. And I'll get to the root causes just a second, because I want to say that one of the things that we understand is happening with long COVID and myalgic encephalitis is that your immune system is dysregulated. It is either overreacting or underreacting or both at the same time. And so we need to get that back into a normal zone. And by addressing those health foundations, it can begin to help you normalize. The 5 root causes that I uncovered that second time I got really sick, that was the gift of that time for me, is looking at what I call the gateway root cause, which is the hormone triangle. And this is looking at your adrenal glands, your hypothalamic pituitary axis, your ovaries, and your thyroid, and seeing how they all interact with each other. They're like a symphony. They need to be in tune together, and they keep each other balanced out. If one is out of whack, they pull the other one out. And this is what I call the gateway root cause, because so many of us in this culture are on the stress express 24/7 in our 20s, in our 30s, in our 40s, and it sets us up for a much harder time in perimenopause and menopause if that adrenal gland is trashed out. And it really opens us up to being vulnerable to some of the other root causes. And that's a gateway root cause. So a lot of you, if you're waking up with energy in the morning, or you get a burst at nighttime, or you're exhausted all day and then you can't sleep at night, that may be cortisol dysregulation. And so doing a 4-point cortisol test, salivary cortisol test, is a really good way of assessing that. So that's kind of a take-home, write-down pearl to keep in mind. And even things like Quest Lab, which is a standard lab in the United States, you can get a 4-point cortisol test, have your doctor order that for you and get that done through Quest Lab. And there are a number of functional medicine tests where you can get that done as well.
And spoiler alert, by the way, most people have adrenal issues.
Most of us do in this culture because of how we live, because we are really pushing our bodies beyond what is normal. Yeah. I mean, I know I took a vacation in Mexico a couple years ago, and when I first flew in and I'm going through immigration, I was like, oh, God, can they do it faster? Like classic American. Can we just speed this up a little bit? Can we just get on with it? And then by about 5 days into my vacation, I realized that I was the crazy one, that they are sane enough to live at a normal human pace, whether they're doing the asphalt on the streets or, doing whatever their job is, they're doing it at a human pace. So they don't like crazy like we are.
Yeah, we are pretty crazy here.
We are indeed.
We like to go full force.
Yeah. So the other root causes are looking at chronic viral infections or other infections. That could be a fungal infection or a low-grade bacterial infection, something that's flown under the radar and your immune system hasn't recognized it and it's laying in your cells. Those can get reactivated when you're in that vulnerable state. So you could have had like an Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus illness when you were a kid that was just sort of some little thing, and then some stress can trigger that to get reactivated in your cells. This is what I would consider the lowest hanging fruit, the most common missed when people are talking to their doctors. They're afraid to test for chronic viral reactivation because they don't understand how to read the labs well. And this is something that I would love to get out there into like all of the HMOs, because I think that a lot of people are struggling with fatigue that don't need to because of this condition, because of the reactivated viruses. The third is looking at toxins. We have so many toxins in our world. Some of us are born with genetics where our bodies don't let go of those toxins as well. And others of us just through lifestyle, through everything else we're doing, our detoxification pathways are not optimized. And we're all exposed to toxins. We all are. And so looking at that toxic overload, mycotoxins from mold are one of the ones that I see that are the most common. And partly because if you have mycotoxins in you, it's also going to trigger that dysregulated immune system that again makes you more vulnerable to some of the other root causes. You may have 1, 2, or all 3 or all 5 of these root causes. They tend to kind of hang together in somebody who's been really sick for a while. Then the fourth root cause is looking at mitochondrial. Your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the powerhouses of all of your cells. And they are, so important for them to be able to function well. I just hosted an amazing summit where I interviewed like over 40 brilliant minds. It was really a treat to be able to do it. And we got to have some very deep dives into a conversation around mitochondria. And there's so much happening in the mitochondria with people who are struggling with fatigue, brain fog, and dementia. And we're seeing this huge link between all of these pieces. The mitochondria, some people, if you're experiencing one of the hallmarks of having long COVID and chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, is something called post-exertional malaise. And that's where if you do more than you usually do in a day and you pay for it. So if you can hike 3 miles and you go 5 and you're exhausted for days afterwards, that's post-exertional malaise. It can hit immediately or there can be a delayed response. Since I got long COVID, my response is delayed. It comes on 2 days later. And so it's been really interesting to see that that's different from me than it was when I just had straight myalgic encephalitis. It wasn't delayed. That post-exertional malaise is a hallmark sign that there's mitochondrial dysfunction going on in your body. Another sign that may indicate mitochondrial dysfunction is your metabolism feels like it is broken. And this is something we're seeing over and over with long COVID, where it just does not make sense. What's happening to your body does not make sense compared to what you're putting in your body. And this can also be due to how your mitochondria are processing the carbohydrates and the fats and the protein. And there's some pretty advanced theories out there about what's happening in some people with long COVID and their mitochondria, which is really fun to dive into. And there's a huge overlay with all these things because one of the things that can trigger mitochondrial dysfunction are toxins. Too many toxins in the cell, the mitochondria break. They can't work. They can't produce energy for you. Some viruses will go into the mitochondria and suck the energy straight out of there so you don't get it and they get it instead. So you can see how there's some
The
overlay.
energy stealers. Yeah.
Energy stealers for sure. Yeah.
Like vampires in your
The little
cells.
vampires,
Yep.
exactly. Little vampires. And then the fifth is looking at your limbic brain and amygdala insula, which are part of your subconscious mind, and they are intertwined with this beautiful long nerve called the vagus nerve. There's this exhibit called Body Worlds that went around the whole planet and went to science museums, and they allowed practitioners to go in on an early Sunday morning. So at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I went into OMSI, our local science museum, and there were very few people there. And I walked in and I saw these pieces of bodies. And to me, it felt like a sacred journey to be able to walk in there and see this. As a physician, I'm in incredible awe and honor of what we are. I think it's a miracle. And I remember walking in and seeing this display of, it was between this, plexiglass of all of the nerves splayed out, and it was just incredible, all lit up. And it was the first time I really got that nervous system in a new way. And there's this one nerve called the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body. It's the only nerve that leaves the brain stem and comes all the way down and touches your lungs and your gut and your liver and your spleen and everything. And that's a communication pathway where that vagus nerve is picking up what's happening in your body. If you have dysbiosis, if you have inflammation, if you're in pain, if you're stressed out, if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good. Those are imprints that come in and the vagus nerve picks up and goes to the subconscious mind and sends signals, we're not okay, we're not okay, we're not okay. And then at the same time, if you have subconscious stuff, we all have trauma that has not been resolved and worked on from childhood, from, generational trauma, whatever, in that subconscious, it amplifies that message. We're not okay. We're not okay. And then that brain sends a message down to the body. We're not okay. And you get this bidirectional feedback that can put the body into a state of lower energy. It's called torpor syndrome in the medical world, kind of a state of hibernation. It slows down that mitochondria, so it doesn't produce as much energy. And it can amplify your sense of pain. And really what it's doing, that limbic brain is there for our survival. All it's doing out of its desire to protect you is to say, I don't understand what's going on. All I can tell you is it's not safe and we're not okay. And you need to go hide in your cave. Would you please, I'm going to amplify your pain. I'm going to amplify your fatigue. I'm going to amplify your desire to stay isolated and make you a little bit depressed or a little bit anxious. And I want you to go back in your cave because that's all I can figure out. And so that's the fifth root cause. And sometimes people will start out with that gateway root cause of that triangle, ignore it, and then it triggers something else, and then they're more exhausted. They go to their doctor, they're told they're normal, they keep pushing, they keep going to the gym, they overdo it, they start getting more exhausted, and then that limbic brain kind of kicks in and then we see people spinning down.
Well, and I bet also they're ending up on anxiety medication,
Totally.
sleep medication,
Totally.
antidepressants, pain
Totally.
medication,
Totally.
and that's still not addressing the root cause.
Exactly. And then usually the metabolism gets blown out. Either people usually can't put on enough weight, so they're super skinny and they just can't, their body just won't hold on to muscle and the proper amount of fat, or the opposite happens. It's just like the body just keeps storing things in fat tissue and you can't metabolize it. And so all kinds of things. Yes.
I just had an interesting thought about this new kind of heavy movement towards things like Ozempic and all the GLP-1 agonists. I actually wonder if many of the people that are seeking these medications to help lose extra weight because they've tried everything else. I wonder if this could be tied together in some of these root causes you just mentioned.
Well, there can be for sure. There's a lot of really deeper reasons why your metabolism may be broken or dysregulated at this time. And it's often a sign of your body trying to protect you in one way or the other. I mean, just if you are full of toxins, your body's going to hold on to fat to protect you because it wants to
Yeah.
store those toxins in your fat because that's better for you than storing it in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's literally trying to protect you and save you. So your body's not going to release that fat if you're too toxic. And if you do release it too quickly, then it can become an overload for the system and people can get sick from
Yeah.
detoxing too quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make this a little bit more tangible for some people. I
Sure.
want to pick on a symptom that many women experience, especially in midlife, and that is brain fog. Why should we be worried? And this is actually joked about as a very common thing. You'll see it
Yeah.
all over social media, like, oh, I can't remember where I put my keys. It must
Yeah.
be menopause.
Yeah.
It's a joke now, but should we be worried about this?
Yeah, we should actually. Yeah. And I know, I think I put out a few of those memes myself because
I'm
I
guilty
mean,
too. I joke
'cause,
about it.
laughing is important for sure. And there is a shift that happens just as for those who have been pregnant, there's pregnancy brain from just all the hormone shifts. And there is a fog that happens for those of us that have teenagers. We know there's a fog that happens, in boys and girls when they're going through adolescence.
Yeah.
And yes, again, we experience this fog when our hormones are changing. However, one of the things that is really concerning is brain fog is a sign of brain inflammation. And this is where, again, and if you have one of these underlying root causes or something that's triggering brain inflammation in your head, as your hormones go up and down, it can make that much worse. And what is concerning and important, and why I think it's so important that we start understanding this line, the brain inflammation, if you're dealing with anxiety and depression, that's brain inflammation. It's the same brain inflammation that is the same thing for brain fog. It's the same brain inflammation for fatigue. It's the same brain inflammation for dementia. It's all brain inflammation. It's neuroinflammation. And how the brain is unique compared to the rest of the body is how it handles inflammation. If you sprain your ankle, there's this inflammatory response that if you just rest, it kind of peaks at 72 hours and then starts to naturally come down. And if you just rest it, it's naturally going to heal. It's going to go back into its natural state. The brain doesn't have that. The brain stays inflamed unless you come in and actively stop that inflammation. And your pain signal is the brain fog. Your brain cells don't have pain signals the way your ankle does. So if you go out and you sprain your ankle and then you go out for a walk or go shoot some hoops and ow, oh, did it. Okay, that's feedback. Your brain doesn't have that pain signal. It can only get foggier. So, and one of the things that can happen is if you've had any kind of traumatic brain injury, and I really hope I want you to take this home. This is a write or down or something to really understand. Traumatic brain injury does not have to be a physical head bonk. We can get traumatic brain injuries from viral infections, bacterial infections, from toxic overloads, and from trauma, or any one of those. Anytime you have one TBI, you fall off your bike when you're 7, that has already primed those brain cells to know what it's like to be inflamed. And they're going to be much easier to activate to another round of inflammation once they get a second insult. It can be another bonk, but it could also be the infection, the emotional stress, all of those things. So a lot of us are walking around who have brain fog are walking around with inflammation like you would see from a traumatic brain injury in our heads. And if we don't address it, it sets us up to being much more likely to experience dementia. Now, that dementia risk is also related to what your lifestyle is and to your genetics. So, and those are all things that we can influence the lifestyle massively. And we see, and part of why I'm sharing this is there are things that you can do for all of these conditions. So don't believe somebody that says we can't treat chronic fatigue or myalgic encephalitis or long COVID. That's not true. There are things you can do for it. And the same thing with the dementias. They're not inevitable. There are things we can do.
That's fascinating that you say that because I know that is on the top of minds of many women entering perimenopause, menopause. Maybe
Yeah.
they have a
Yeah.
parent or an aunt or a grandparent or a friend that is experiencing the onset of dementia or full-blown dementia, and they are worried. And this conversation has only just started right now about what you just said, that you can do things to prevent it. So can we dive a little bit into that? Because I know this is top of mind for women right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had this personal experience when my dad was being diagnosed with a form of dementia. And at the same time, I felt like I was losing my mind. And I was really scared that I had an early onset form of what he was experiencing. And I got lost like 2 blocks away from a building that we owned, and it was terrifying how bad my brain was, absolutely terrifying. And I was able to get that brain back. And what I found out, so the thing is you need to uncover what is causing that brain inflammation for you. For me, I had black mold in our basement. We've been living with it for years. I was also going through that perimenopause piece, and I also had a reactivated Epstein-Barr virus,
Oh,
and those were
triple
the things.
blow.
Yeah, triple blow, and so those were the things that were really inflaming my brain, and when I addressed my root causes, I actually was able to stay. It took us a year to figure out how we were gonna remodel the house because I was like, "We're going for it." Like, and we moved out for a year, but in that year that we were planning, I was able to set up a number of protocols for myself. So I was able to get that inflammation down. So by the time we moved, I was feeling much better, even though I was still in the mold. And I, brought in a sauna and detoxified and all that. It's uncovering the root causes. There are tests that you can do for mold to see if you're having an immune reaction to mycotoxins
Yeah, is
in
there
your
one you
blood.
like to recommend for people?
Yeah, I've done the urine test and I've also done blood tests, and I have found the blood test to be more beneficial clinically. Personally, I think there's value in both at different times. But my myco labs, I don't have any affiliation with
Yeah.
them at all. But they are, I really like how they do their lab testing for mycotoxins to look and to see if your immune system is reacting to
Yeah.
that.
Is that something women can just get without a doctor's prescription or order?
I am not sure. I think so,
Mm.
but I don't actually know. Yeah.
That can be a barrier to a lot of people's
Mhm,
access
mhm.
to these tests.
Yeah, but there's
Mhm.
also about educating your providers. Most
Mhm.
providers really want to help you and they want to help you get better. So if you have a good relationship with them or even a decent relationship, being willing to have that conversation after they do the first CBC and chem
Yeah.
screen and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're doing great." And they take your blood pressure and it's a bit low, which can be a sign of adrenal fatigue, by the way,
Mhm.
or of autonomic nervous system, which is another very common symptom or issue that people have with these conditions. So doing a deeper dive
Yeah.
and saying, "Hey, I heard about this test from a doctor. Are you willing to order it for me?" Is a fair conversation. Are you willing to get more educated? I had a lot of physicians participating in my summit because they wanted to get more educated on how to help their patients with these conditions.
I love that you said that because there's like a billion women in menopause right now. We can actually move the needle in
Exactly.
demanding better healthcare just by
Exactly.
helping to educate our
Exactly.
practitioners. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you do an at-home mold test as well? Like how did you discover that the black mold was in your basement? You said
I brought an inspector in that I trusted. There's some really great inspectors out there, and there's some not very good ones too. So do your due diligence. I wish I could remember the website to go to. I can't remember the website. I interviewed this really great guy, Brantley May,
Mm.
on the summit, and he made a recommendation of how to tell if somebody's really valid in terms of what they're doing. But I brought in a mold inspector, and he did a great history of my house, just like I do with my clients and patients. I spend like time getting that full history. I loved my inspector who came here. He's in the Pacific Northwest with us, and he was in here for hours and looked at every single nook and cranny and really took a good history of our house to see where there's water incursion. So that's one of the best things to do is to get a really good inspector in to look and to see what's going on. Testing for your house is tricky because there isn't one test that is 100% valid. I have a hard time. I'm still talk to these inspectors every 6 months. I call up my favorite ones and I'm like, "Hey, got anything new for me yet?" Because I want the most valid test I can tell my patients to use for their homes.
Yeah.
And at this point, there isn't a test. There are a couple different ones, but I think those tests have to be interpreted in association with other information. So usually what I do as a clinician, somebody's coming to me who's sick and not well. I'm asking about potential mold exposure. You can have that exposure currently in your home, or it could have been something you got in college, like I did when there was like black mold on the walls and under my
Mhm.
futon. And it's just part of normal college life, right?
I mean, would
And
it be safe to say that almost everyone's been exposed?
yes, yes, everyone has been exposed, but not everybody is sick from it. You should most people should be able to have exposure to some level of normal amount of mold, and their body recognizes it as an alien thing, attacks it, and breaks it down and gets rid of it. There's a percentage of us where our immune systems don't seem to recognize it, and it tends to bioaccumulate in our bodies. And then you can also get, and there's mold, there's mildew, there's all different kinds of things, and mycotoxins are chemical byproducts of those, and they're the most damaging. All of us can be killed by enough of certain mycotoxins, and we can also all be helped by certain mycotoxins. Penicillin is a mycotoxin. And so, there's a whole big world around mycotoxins. Why I like this My Myco test is it's looking to see, is your immune system reacting to this mycotoxin in a way that shows that your body is inflamed from it or not. And that is a really great, that's why I like that test for people as a clinician. Anyway, so I have people that come in, they're sick. I'm trying to figure out how high on the list is mycotoxin or mold toxicity for them. And I'm also asking about the health of the rest of the people living in that same building. And if it feels like, oh, mom's sick, really sick with chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, long COVID, has all the kind of classic symptoms. Little Joey's got asthma, and it seems to be asthma year round. It's not seasonal asthma. It's not exercise, and it's year round. Mary just kind of, is super tired and fatigued, even though she's only 6. It's like you start adding up the picture and you're like, maybe you have a toxic home, and maybe we need to bring somebody in there to start looking at that piece too. Or a super fun way to test is to just go away for 2 weeks. Go on vacation at a place that you are as sure as you can be as clean, and see if you feel better. A lot of people are like, wow, I feel so much better on vacation. I come home and I feel sick. And they think it's just their life, but it's their house.
Yeah, that is a fun test. I like that one. I'm
Yeah,
going to
no,
try and
for me
convince my
too.
husband to do that one coming up.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is actually an art a lot of conversation is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of pieces that are involved in diagnosing this. So probably seeking the advice and care of a professional in this situation would be really helpful. Otherwise, I can see people going along their own path and trying to DIY it and maybe spending years trying to figure out what is going on and also feeling crappy the whole time.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think that it's a combination. I'm a full believer in empowering yourself in your own healthcare.
Yeah.
And I think I think it is the future. And I think that future is with us now. We all know the medical system is in a place of transition. When everything's breaking down, there's always an opportunity for us to create what it is that we want and to start activating that now, even amongst the rubble. And I think that empowered self-care, where we have an understanding of our body, we have so much information. You're here now listening to this. It's like we know so much more about our bodies than we used to. And using that, and then also tapping into that intuition and that confidence of that I know my body better than anybody else, and then utilizing your professional team to be your guides and to be your support can make that journey way faster. And that's really what it is. It's not that the person with the white coat holds all the power. You hold the power inside of you to heal your body. We want to activate that inside of you. It's finding the right people in your medical team to support you in that process so that you get to own it the whole way through and be guided so that you can have the most efficient route. Yes, because you're correct. It's really easy to get lost in the research papers, in the podcasts, in the summits, and to be like, there's so much, where do I even start? Or to get overly excited about, oh my gosh, my friend is taking the supplement from the Amazon and feels amazing. That must be it. And it's never one thing. These conditions are never caused by one thing, and they're never healed by one thing. It's a whole picture that we need to look at. And so, yeah, getting the support for somebody that can help you, guide you there is great.
Yeah, you've really clearly outlined that there are these root causes and that each person is biologically unique. So, depending on the status of your foundational health,
Yeah.
you could be living in the same house as someone else,
Yeah.
and like a woman, same age, going through menopause or perimenopause, and one woman will react one way, and another woman may not even react because
Exactly.
our bodies are so different. So it's actually really fascinating to see that we are so unique in our.
Yeah, I love that too. It's fascinating to me too. And I love it when I get to work with individuals And we get to move through this 5-step process where we get to uncover their root causes and then do this calibration phase where we figure out what is the right match for them, for their body, which treatments work for them. Because there's not a protocol. There's like different,
Yeah.
some people resonate. And then I get to see them develop into becoming this new person that they become as they heal. Because every challenge in life has an opportunity for us to grow and become a better version of, who we can be in the world at this time.
Yeah, Dr. Jenny, you mentioned your 5-step protocol. Do you want to go over that just really quickly and share what that is for people that might be
Sure.
curious?
Sure. Yeah. So the first step I call decoding, and that's where we're figuring out what are the health foundations that need to be addressed and what's the first one to start with. And then it's which of the root causes are impacting you. Because even if you have 3 or 4 of them, there's usually a root under the root that's impacting more. And we start there working on that one. And that's decided through the history, through lab testing, if there are lab tests for it. Sometimes it's through trying a protocol to see if you get a response. Like sometimes with mitochondrial dysfunction, I give a protocol, see if we get a response. If we do, great. If we don't, that's more information. The second phase is what I call that calibration stage. And I would say my toolkit from doing this for decades is really deep and wide. And and some bodies respond really well to one kind of medicine versus another. Some people really need energetic medicine like homeopathy and flower essences. They're super sensitive people. Other people on the other side of the spectrum, they need the pharmaceuticals or something in between where it's botanicals or essential oils or, supplements. And some people can pull from all of these and some just need. I had one patient who just homeopathy and pharmacy, that's all that worked on her. Nothing else worked. And, it's individualized. And my goal is in this calibration phase for people to understand what they need to address whatever's going on with them, but for them to also become more empowered because now they have tools in their toolkit. They have a deeper understanding of what works for their body. They know they're not like everybody else. So that they can have that for the rest of their life. The third phase is going into this phase where they're able to really be able to utilize that. It's called a power up phase, really utilize that toolkit and start addressing things. And this is usually where people come back and say, Dr. Jenny, the floor's been raised. I feel like I have more energy. Things are getting better, but they're not out of the woods yet. Some people like to coast here. And some people like to move into the fourth phase, which I call deep cognizance. And this is what I call, it's like you've cleaned the house and now you're pulling the boxes out of the closet and you're opening them up. This deep cognizant is for you to do deeper work. Now that you have your toolkit in hand, now you can go in and your body is now ready for that deeper detoxification. Too many people detox too soon and their body can't handle it, makes them worse. Or maybe it is working on that trauma, that subconscious stuff that happened when you were 4. Something there that we can do now that you have the tools, that if it kind of triggers something, if the house gets messy and it's kind of triggering, you've got the tools to work on it and the support. And then once you've done that work, then the 5th level just naturally happens, which is this transformational level. And this is where I see people coming into them being in themselves in a whole new way. This is where I see people like, I didn't realize I always loved art so much, and now I'm doing all this artwork, or I am, switching professions, or I am just learning how to be with myself and love myself in a way I didn't realize how all that self-criticism was actually wearing me out. And now I'm learning how to talk to myself and be with myself in a new way. All of these things I see happen, and I really see people that's when people are like, wow, I never realized how much I was going to get out of this experience of being sick, like.
It sounds transformative.
It is. It can be. It can be if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to hang in there and take the steps.
Amazing. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Jenny, I know people are going to want to connect with you after this podcast, which was full of golden nuggets. I mean, I think I may have to go back and hear it again. It was so good. I know you have something like a quiz that people can take. Do you want to say a few words about that? And we'll have the link below in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to my website, drjennytufenkian.com, that's drjenny, Jenny, Tufenkian, T as in Tom, U, F as in Frank, E, N as in Nancy, KIAN.com. On the website, there's a quiz where you can discover what are your underlying root causes. And I created this quiz following that same medical algorithm I talked about ruling in and ruling out. Is it the hormone triangle? Is it in mitochondria? And so taking that quiz can give you some insights. Of course, it's not a diagnosis, but it can give you some interesting insights into what's going on with you.
Amazing. That will be so fun to take and get some insights. And then also, can we connect with you on social anywhere?
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm also in LinkedIn, and I also have a YouTube channel.
Okay, we'll put those links in the show notes too for people to connect with you because this was really fascinating. I think people want to learn more. Oh, and then also we'll put the link to your summit as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd
Thank
be
you.
great. It's still up there for people if you're interested in checking that
Yeah,
out.
I'm a big fan of I just finished a summit myself, and I think it is one of the best ways, actually the most affordable way to get high quality
Oh gosh.
education right
Yeah.
at your fingertips. It's just amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that work as well. Any last words you want to share with our audience, Dr. Jenny?
I'd say just know that you have the ability to heal. Whatever's going on in your life right now, if you're not feeling perfectly satisfied with your energy, with your health, with where your body is right now, know that your body has the ability to heal and change. And it's just really figuring out what is it that your body needs right now to be able to trigger that healing response so that you can live that life fully.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Hey, lovely listeners. Before we go, remember, this is just the beginning of our journey together. If you're excited to explore more about hormones, weight loss, and stepping into your power, check out leahvachani.com to see how you can join me in thriving through menopause. And don't forget to stay connected with me on Instagram at Leah Vachani for daily doses of laughs, inspiration, and insights. Until next time, stay fierce and fabulous and keep owning your journey wherever you are in the world.